Thank you all for joining us for our live discussion with 2021 funded alumni. So those are folks who attended 2021 SICSS-Howard Mathematica, the inaugural session, and received funding at the end. So I'm joined today by PhD candidate Troy, PhD student Regina, PhD student Rashun, PhD candidate Yondu, PhD student Todd, PhD candidate Yash in 2 weeks. I'm also Dr. Nicole Jenkins, who is our faculty member, our faculty sponsor, and also as an attendee last year at our opening site. So we're just going to jump into questions. As you all know, we have videos up talking about all of their research. So if you have had a chance to look at those, great. If you haven't yet, that's okay too. You can look at them later. But this panel is meant to give you an introduction to what this all looks like when it comes together. So I'm a big fan of starting with the big picture. So at the end of this, y'all are going to look like these people, okay? So they fly, they got swag, they intelligent. That's going to be you in just 11 short days, right? Not 12, 11. So at the end of this, you'll be humble bragging. You'll be an assistant professor at Howard, like Dr. Jenkins. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start off with a couple of questions, and then at any point, please feel free to raise your hand. I have some questions specific to each of their projects that our undergraduate research team came up with. But we really, really, really want to spend time hearing from you all and asking about what they did to get to this point. Because at the end of this, we want you all to have funding, okay, from us. And as I announced earlier, the main umbrella site is not able to provide funding to our 33 sites for research projects this year. So this is the exclusive opportunity for you all, and it is not open to anyone outside of this room of 17 people, okay? So you're basically competing with yourself for the funds, okay? All right, so why don't we start by asking each of the projects to give an introduction, a 2-minute introduction to the project. Please also introduce yourselves. You notice I just said your name there. So please introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about the project, how it came together. You know, just give us the big picture. So who wants to kick us off? You know, I don't like to tell people to do stuff. So if somebody could like wave their arms around a little bit and just claim it, just claim it. That'd be great. I mean, somebody want to wave their arms? You know me. If you start smiling and moving, I'm gonna call on you. Okay, Todd's got his hand up. Okay, thank you, Todd. Todd's going to kick us off. Introduce yourself. Tell us about like the trajectory of this project. How did it all come together?
Hi, everyone. My name is Todd Hall. I'm a rising third-year PhD student in education policy at the University of Virginia, and I mostly study early childhood education policy, and also I'm interested in discipline in both early childhood and K-12 settings. And I'm very enthusiastic about SICSS. In fact, I currently have a SICSS grill, as you can see. You can see the SICSS logo shining through. But I heard about SICSS through another PhD student in my program who did a different site. And when I heard about Howard Mathematica, I was like, oh, this is the one that I want to do, that I want to immerse myself in. I started out in my PhD program working on some early childhood projects with my advisor, Daphne Basak. And I also got involved with a project called TeachSim. And it's essentially a teaching simulator for pre-service teachers. And it's a way to train pre-service teachers on things like classroom management and leading discussions. And they have these student avatars that are controlled by an actor. And so these pre-service teachers are actually interacting with sort of like a mixed reality simulation of what it would be like to be in a classroom. So when I first joined that project, I had heard about an experiment that randomly assign the racial phenotype of the student avatars that were exhibiting off-task behavior. And I was interested in understanding from transcripts of the pre-service teachers, like in the simulator, and then also debriefing the simulator in a coaching conversation, whether the racial phenotype of the avatar affected how the pre-service teacher engaged with regard to classroom management. So I was like, this is super cool. I definitely don't have the skills to do that. When I heard about SICSS and the opportunity to skill up, and then also to do so with like-minded folks who are tackling anti-Black racism, I was like, oh, this is perfect. So I came in with that project in mind. I focused a lot on the text analytics and working with R and skilling up in that capacity. And then the icing on the cake was the funding opportunity, because this was an idea that was sort of sitting on the shelf for a long time. I had mentioned it to the rest of the Teach Them team, but when the call for funding went out, that was like the kick in the pants to be like, okay, Todd, like you can do this and go for it. And, you know, with the support of the Teach Them team, which I'm very grateful for, Dr. Vivian Wong, Julie Cohen, Anandita Krishnamachari, and then SICSS broadly, I felt like I had the confidence to start the journey of continuing to build on those skills, and also to kind of take ownership of those aspects, was they sort of graciously said that I, you know, am welcome to work with the data. So that was my SICSS journey, and I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Todd. I know we have a lot of people that are interested in text analysis, and lots of people interested in tech. I appreciate you just demystifying things for you. I have to tell you, we should sell grills. I suspect that there were lots of people from other sites who will probably want to buy a grill that says SICSS on it. So you may need to buy the SICSS Grill website right now, so we could get on that. I appreciate that. All right, SICSS swag. They don't even know about the swag yet. So y'all are going to get this best swag box you've ever gotten in your life, and I am not joking about that. Like, there's going to be a gift card in there for some food. There's all sorts of stuff. It's going to be good. All right, so next up is Nikki and Yash. Excuse me, Dr. Jenkins, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. So good to be here. Yes, I am Nikki Jenkins, Dr. Jenkins. I'm an assistant professor at Howard University. This is my first year on the tenure track. So as Nanette had mentioned, I don't even think I had applied for a full-time position at Howard when I was in the fellowship. I think I was adjuncting there. So it's been a great year, but I am an ethnographer, and I did my dissertation research in an African braiding and weaving salon. I was interested in natural hair experiences of Black women, and this is what I wrote my dissertation on. In that ethnographic research, though, there were so many other themes. And the largest theme actually was not hair. In that ethnographic project, I found that other themes emerged, like motherhood and labor and intraracial dynamics and those sorts of things. So when I got to SICSS, I was still remain interested in natural hair experiences of Black women. So when given the opportunity, I introduced the idea to my colleagues and was so excited that there were other folks who actually shared my excitement surrounding the topic. So our team was developed. We have Yash Tadimalla, who, as we just announced, will be a PhD candidate in the next couple of weeks, which I'm really excited about. And then we also had Dr. Marissa Smith. So I am a qualitative researcher. Yash is a PhD candidate in computer science, and then Marissa has brought with her media skills. So it was quite an interesting dynamic. And what we wanted to look at was exploring the narratives of Black women and how are they talking about their hair? How are they experiencing their identities in different institutions when donning a variety of natural hair styles. So that was one element of the project. Then we additionally wanted to look at how are folks talking about their natural hair on social media. So this is where Marissa came in, was able to not only look at the social media aspect of it, but also media in general, right? So news and different things that are surfacing in the media regarding natural hair discrimination. And the third component of the project is creating this is the part that's really exciting to me, is creating this sort of super open database, right? Where folks can upload their narratives surrounding their natural hair experiences, and there would just be this one place where all these narratives exist. And that expertise is coming in with Yash. He's working on the development of that. So that is the project. And SICSS really made it was like a dream come true for a researcher, right? Like the nerd in us is like, yay, you get so excited when you have a team of folks with all these different skills, and you can really take an idea and make it much bigger and much more exciting. Yes, it is complex. Yes, there's a lot of learning, but it's so much fun. So that is our project. Yes, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Thank you, Nicole. But Nicole basically got everything. Something that I would add would be that, so I am from a computer science background. Like I had my undergrad in computer engineering, my master's in computer science, and when I started my PhD, that I am doing an interdisciplinary PhD in computer science and sociology. And I am the only person in the whole cohort because it's the first cohort in my college. And it was really hard for me to find spaces where people were looking at how technology impacts communities from a perspective where they are on the community side, where the community is not a user or the community is not a client, but they themselves identify as a member of the community. Because of the way tech is so disproportionately represented, it's often people who research topics away from the population that they're researching. And SICSS was one of those few places where people were not only encouraging, but really appreciating both that everyone was coming from the sociology side and tech side. And I would really encourage everyone in this group to embrace those sides. Don't be restrained by labels. You are not a sociologist, or you're not a computer science person. You're not a health informatics person. You are everything you can be. And that's where collaboration and teams come in.
Thank you, Yash. I wanted to note something very important about the two first projects that we presented, which is they're examples of our two types. So you can either get a group of people together and work on a project, and you notice that this team assembled around the content expertise of Dr. Nikki, and that folks added skills to that. So that's an example. So you may come with a particular skill set or particular content expertise, and you may want to find a project or build a project that will allow you to use that. The other example is an individual project. In this case, you can take the funds that we give you and take that to maybe a researcher on your campus and be able to add something onto a project. So these funds can allow you to coalesce as a group, or also bring something to the table with a researcher back at your home institution, which is what Todd did. Okay, so those are two different examples. So skills, content, expertise, individual, group. So whatever you bring to the table is going to be valid and very useful. So you may want to spend some time, I told you, to think about your intentions, but also think about what you bring to the table. What are those skills, and how can you figure out which one of those you want to use or build or engage in the project that you choose. All right, so let's go with our final project. I also want to mention, we realized, thank you, Christina, that the slides all link to the same project right now. We'll update those on the website, so that'll get done by the end of the day. So all of you get to see, I think it's this next project 3 times in terms of the slides. So you know, let's we'll end on a high note of introductions with our mega slides right now. Go ahead, next team.
All right, so I'll start, and I think maybe each of us can say our names and where we're located from our team are a little bit larger than the other groups. So I'm Troy. I'm a PhD candidate currently at Karolinska Institute in Stockholm, Sweden, and then also at the National Institutes of Health. It's a joint program. And I'm still deciding on next steps, but I've got a couple offers. So maybe I'll join you over in the Bay Area to the rival school, unfortunately, but potentially. I mean, I haven't accepted anything yet.
I'm about to turn off your camera and kick you out.
But yeah, and I think I'll let others in our group introduce themselves, and I'll talk about our project after.
Okay, I'll go ahead. So I'm Yondu. I'm a PhD candidate at McGill University in Canada. Might be the only one from Canada. Yeah. Oh, and then my background is
Merlin is also from Canada. You're not alone. You are not alone.
Oh, great. I'll let other people go.
Hi, I'm Regina. I'm a PhD student in the psychology department at UC Berkeley.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rashun Miles. I am a doctoral student at University of Mississippi, and my background is mostly around compassion fatigue and social welfare infectious disease, and I have it's not related to the project, but like something that I want to like explore is like I'm really into like cryptocurrency and payment and cross-border payments, and so that's something that also I have a passion in.
But before you all start the project, so a couple things I want to mention. So you heard some research interest here. If you're interested in cryptocurrency, you could reach out to Brother RJ and apply for funding. So alums are allowed to apply for funding. So these are opportunities here. And with those in mind, we're going to go back to Regina and Yondu, and they're going to tell us something about what they study. Ladies, you're not allowed to go, my name is Regina, and then log out. Okay, we'll start with Regina, so Yondu has a chance to think about it. Regina, talk about your work. Okay, go ahead.
My work is exploring the interconnection between culture, emotions, and empathy. So I explore how cultures impact our emotion beliefs, the strategies used to regulate emotions, and empathic accuracy.
And my dissertation focuses on the effect of people's accents in job interviews for like how competent somebody is perceived to be. And I look at three aspects: their accent itself, what their race is, as well as their tone of voice and how that can influence how competent they're perceived to be.
Awesome. So yeah, so our group is relatively diverse, but we all sort of have interests in kind of communication, whether it be verbal or nonverbal, and interest in healthcare. And so that sort of was a nice blend into our projects that are dealing with and thinking about pain and its potential impacts in different communities. And so that's a lot of my background work has been in pain. So I kind of brought that kind of context to the group. And we are, very interested in our projects. So we've got a few projects that we're trying to put together based on funding from SICSS, which is super exciting. So one is trying to look at how different members, in particular Black members, conceptualize pain. How are they reporting pain? Are they reporting pain differently to doctors or not? And we want to see if there are differences in how people assess people's stories of pain. Are they attributing different levels of pain based on different people's stories? And then finally, we're also interested in the impact that COVID has had on healthcare. And so we're trying to show images of people with masks and without masks on that are giving kind of pain expressions and seeing, do masks make it harder to see pain in individuals? Do they potentially also make disparities even worse in terms of seeing pain? So that's a big goal for us, is trying to figure out ways that we can counter bias in pain assessment, figure out where the bias might be forming, and also just try to figure out ways to counteract it and make more equitable healthcare possible. And so happy to answer a lot of questions on those fronts.
Okay, so before we jump into questions, I just want to make you all aware of something. So as I mentioned, there may be opportunities for you to blog with our team. So we had a 9-part series in the SAGE method space last year called The Future of Computational Social Sciences Black. And we had a competition and selected one participant to write a blog about their experience. That person is Rashun. So that blog is there. It was Finding Personal Restoration Through Computational Social Science at Howard University. So that is in the chat box for you. And you should be able to find the other 8 that are there also. And we're starting to put together our plan for our blogs for this year. They may be here in another space. We'll announce that at some point. But we will have opportunities for both alums and also current participants to be involved with that. We love getting shine for y'all, getting your work out there. Some of us, and you may want to ask Nikki about this, also participated in a podcast. So there was a podcast about our site. So Nikki was one of the folks interviewed. I can't remember if anybody else on here was interviewed. Anybody else here interviewed? No, okay, Nikki will hold it down. All right, so let's start with our first question. So Andrea, go ahead, unmute and take it away.
Good morning, everyone. And so this question is for Yash and Dr. Jenkins. You guys were talking about a database of narratives that you pulled together. So I wanted to kind of understand a little bit more about that. I have a database myself that has narratives in it. And so I'm just interested how you're analyzing it or how you're talking about it, because it would just be very helpful to me.
Do you want me to take it, Nicole? Okay, so basically, as you progress the institute, you'll understand that when we talk about data, often narrative experiences, if we think of it, oh, it's just essays that people are writing, or it's just information, it's just text. But I think something that was really intentional with our team was that these are not just text, but these are people. And it's really important to respect that there are people's information that they're willingly giving. And for that reason, our first approach for this database was how can we protect people's identities? So we are having a two-step, we will have a two-step access protocol to access the database itself, whereas anyone can contribute to the data. I think our cohort, we looked at fragile families data set as a inspiration on how we want to do it. And when it comes to analyzing the data, we were thinking of doing thematic analysis, and also something that was important for us, that when you collect databases, often it's heterogeneous databases, in the sense you get data from people who are typing text, who are submitting audio files, and you're doing real life interviews. So we wanted to ensure that we give researchers all three kinds of data, because often in research projects, you have people, they collect all kinds of different data, and there's a rush to homogenize the data, because homogenized data gives you better data analytics, because you can just run these algorithms. But we were intentional that we wanted to keep them separate, so people doing different kinds of research can do different kinds of data analysis. And another thing that we were thinking about, that we were gonna have this website, which would be our platform. The website would have three things. The first thing would be it would have our base questions that we ask people to respond to, and it would also allow them to submit their audio files. And we would also share a section about what we're doing with the data, because we wanted to be very transparent about what people are signing up for ahead of time. And we also wanted to provide parts of the data as open source data for anyone to get a sample of what the data would look like instead of providing the full data. That's kind of our approach. I don't know if I answered you on how we are implementing it, but that's kind of what we have so far.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to add one little piece to that, and that is the IRB, right? So any folks who have worked with IRB know that, yes, it is much needed. We're so grateful for it, but it can be a headache. So for this process, we're still in the process of with IRB and working through those hurdles.
Next question is from Susanna.
Well, this is more like of a logistic question for all of you, especially the groups that have worked together with interdisciplinary. Like, how was your process of coming together with a cohesive research question that, you know, given that you have different expertise, area expertise, different skills, and how do you make it work, continuously make it work throughout the process?
Maybe we'll do a person from each team. So why don't we jump to, I see you smiling over there, Stanford, maybe. Why don't your team start out? I'm so mad. I'm so mad.
Sorry.
But you know, get that job wherever it is. You actually need to meet Evan if you decide to go there. Evan is running our workshop. He's the data science librarian at Stanford. So we need to hook that up.
That would be helpful. So that was a great question. And you know, there's not going to be one solution to that question. There's going to be hopefully a smattering of solutions given during this little response. But yeah, for us, we were a bit overwhelmed when we did our research matchmaking and trying to figure out projects that people were interested in, because we saw, I feel like, hundreds of suggestions and that can be quite overwhelming. And you also, I think a problem that most of us have is that we can be interested in lots of things. You know, it's easy to get passionate in a lot of topics. And I think for our group in particular, we sort of had this overarching interest in kind of healthcare and or communication. And you know, it was difficult in the beginning trying to hone in on bringing those numbers of projects down into smaller levels. And I think starting out, it would have been helpful to just have thematic themes. So it's like, are there people just generally interested in healthcare? Not get more specific than that. and then just getting the people together that have a general interest is where you can then start to put together your brains and generate those ideas and figure out like what are the particular things that are going to be interesting to all of us, or to you know, to fill out subgroups within this theme, because you know, not everyone has to do, you know, a particular project. So we're doing pain, but you know, there were a few other people that were in the healthcare interested group that were like, oh, I'm not as interested in going that route and looking into that, so we're going to do something else. So I think definitely starting with a theme and then starting to break down is a little bit more of an organized way of doing it. And then on the second part of the question of how to make it continuous and to work moving through SICSS, but also beyond, you know, it takes a little bit of effort on everyone's part. For us, what we really love to do is, you know, we send out lots of emails to each other, and we set up little Zoom chats. So we meet up every once in a while to just chat over Zoom. And the thing that's also helpful for us, which I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but it's really easy to procrastinate on different projects, especially when we've got overwhelmed with workload in our normal day-to-day. So we will put like little deadlines for ourselves. So we'll put like little calendar invites saying like, oh, we're going to try to meet over Zoom on this day and hopefully have done XYZ by this date. And then during the Zoom call, we talk about it. Like, did we actually accomplish our goals or not? No judgment if we didn't meet them, you know, and it's like, okay, so what are we going to do moving forward to potentially meet those goals and move forward? And I think us as a group have worked really well with that kind of dynamic. And we've already got another meeting that we're trying to get set up for this week to talk about anything that we've learned or gained from you guys from this meeting, and taking that with us as we move forward in our project. So we appreciate it.
So I'm going to add to there and add on, and hopefully someone will unmute if there are additional comments. So I also want to let you know that if this is a project you sound interested, you may want to reach out and join their project. So it's not just brand new projects. So Yash mentioned that there is a research matchmaking process we do. It is organized, chaotic, fun. You know, hundreds of ideas come out of it, but you know, that could be your whole damn research trajectory for the rest of your life. You know, like you may just invest in one project now, but there may be another project that you pick up later. So one thing we didn't do last year, we're going to do this year, and Merlin, please jot this down, is you all provided 3 words. So we'll provide those so you all have a sense of the 3 words that connect with your research interests as they sit right now. So we'll share that, so that'll help to guide you. We'll make sure you get that list tonight or tomorrow. So we head into the next couple weeks, you'll have a chance to reach out to people surrounding that. I have to shout out, Todd has like a star stream coming from his head occasionally. It's just like there's magic, there's black boy magic happening, black boy joy and magic happening over there. He's got like, there's like a path. So yeah, I don't know what that is, but it's kind of fly. I also want to mention, so the matching process, don't worry too much about it. We'll get to that towards the end of the first week and early in the second week, and you'll have a chance to meet with everyone and talk about your research ideas. The last thing I will say, and I think this is important, is don't assume that the loudest ideas in the beginning are the projects that we will do. Because, you know, there was a whole thing on Black Twitter last year. Everyone's like, Black Twitter, Black Twitter. There were no projects on Black Twitter, okay? Some people might arrive with the projects already in mind. Some people might not have an idea yet. Just know that wherever you are in that process, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Each one of those has equal chance of getting funding, okay? All right, so let's get some more ideas in there about organization. Todd is a project of one, but had to convince folks at his university to allow him to take this on and invest it. So Todd, can you talk to us a little bit about how you manage that process of bringing your funding into an existing project? And then maybe we'll finish off with Nikki and Yash offering some thoughts on how they work from North Carolina and also DC together.
Yes, yeah, happy to discuss that. I did want to note briefly, I'm also part of a project with Jeremy Prim at UC Davis and Janera Easley, who I think you will hear from or meet at some point during this cohort. And with that project, I just wanted to second something that Troy mentioned, that having Zoom meetings to check in is definitely super helpful. We established a standing meeting toward the end of last semester, so that like bi-weekly every Wednesday from 10 to 11, we hop on Zoom, and whether we're doing an actual meeting where we're discussing, or we can just put our cameras off, work for 50 minutes and check in at the end, that has been really helpful for protecting the time and also like holding us accountable, again, with no judgment there. As far as integrating the SICSS funding and the project with the research team at UVA, I was fortunate that they were very supportive of me pursuing this research. And so when I heard about the funding call, I sent an email that just said, hey, I know I've discussed this, but like now is the time that I want to actually create a formal proposal. I sent it to them for their feedback and thoughts. And we discussed sort of the scope of work. So what would be within my wheelhouse if I wanted to do sort of an individual project and publication versus if there were some data that I wanted to use that they had collected through surveys as well, making sure that like everyone gets their due respect and credit. And so figuring out at what point it becomes a joint project that we have to sort of revisit sort of like who is listed and sort of who's a main contributor there. Again, it was really nice to have a really supportive faculty and a research scientist who was there. And then with that, sort of with their blessing, I applied to SICSS. You also want to check if you are a PhD student, whether there are certain rules at your university for who can be like listed as the PI, and if there are any sort of administrative T's or I's that you need to dot. But for the most part, I would say just similar to working in a group, communication is key. Having that conversation up front and early on, sort of in advance of the application deadline, to make sure that you are giving credit to everyone who is involved, and also that you're moving in alignment and updating them along the process.
Dr. Jenkins and Yash?
Sure. I just wanted to piggyback on a couple of things mentioned by Troy and Todd, which they're mentioning sort of these multiple projects, right? And Nanette also mentioned that you're going to get flooded with all of these amazing ideas. And beyond the challenges of working interdisciplinarily, I will say that more challenging is deciding which projects you're going to want to work on. I think that was the most difficult part for a lot of us. Because there's so many amazing projects and you might find yourself very interested in some of them. But like Todd, right, you can later work with folks after SICSS, but during SICSS, you can only work on one project. And even if you have the capacity, right, it's kind of, you want to give your all to one project with a short amount of time. The other thing that I would mention is just making sure that you have use everyone's expertise and maximize on that. So when you get together as a group, figure out the questions that each person wants to ask, because it makes your project so much better. The way that we all think and collaborate, and you include everybody's sort of piece of expertise, you really refine the questions that you're asking and the approach that you come up with as a group. And then just consistency, as mentioned before, making sure that you don't just let it trickle off on your to-do list, right? It's something that you need to stay consistent with, and providing weekly updates or bi-weekly, whatever works with your schedule. But yeah.
So if you notice background noise with Dr. Jenkins, it's because she's at a Princeton-sponsored writing retreat and they're investing in first right of refusal on her book. So she is making time for us alongside, being a human. So thank you so much, Dr. Jenkins. Yeah, should you want to add something, or can we jump into the next question?
I have one thing to add. It is okay not to be the lead or the thought like the main idea. Like you have your baby ideas, and something that I think I'm lucky to learn early. Like I'm still a PhD student for 2 weeks, but I've really recognized that it's okay to be a part of something bigger if you believe in the goal. Like when Nicole shared her goal, I believed in her, and I was like, yeah, I have so many ideas, but this is something I want to be a part of because it's a bigger vision, and that's okay. Like never think that your ideas are lesser just because someone else's vision is also great. So I just want to share that.
That is profoundly important. We're about to jump to our next question, which I think is Renee, go Bears. But before we do that, I want to say one thing, which is this collaboration between the two of them is one of the hardest. So you probably read about that in Matt's book, that computer science, thank God he has studied sociology, computer science and social science, because the path forward for those on the computer science side is move fast and break things. And on the social science side, it takes us a little bit longer to get to IRB. And as a person who's attempted to do this, and they are doing it successfully, it is very hard. So I would say with teams like this, it's really important to keep that human subjects, IRB focus at the center, because in order to surpass that hurdle on the social science side, we have to do that. And on the computer science side, you don't necessarily, because you're allowed to beta test things and try things. And as we all know with the Belmont report, when we try things, usually that doesn't go well for Black people. Syphilis studies, hurting Black women, the Stanford prisoner experiment, electroshocking people at Stanford, Troy. They hurt people. So you have to keep IRB at the center, okay? So, and I'm, again, so glad that Yash has that sociology training, because that makes a huge difference. So shout out to interdisciplinary studies. All right, Renee, go Bears. Take it away. Gotta stop doing that, man.
Hi, thank you for sharing you all's research. My question is a two-part question for both groups, sorry. So for Dr. Nikki and Yash, I currently have a data set that I'm working with. And I was wondering, I don't think you all are there yet. I think you said you were still in the IRB process, but I was wondering after what are y'all's plans for data and so forth after like developing themes? What are some next steps after that? In addition to, just because I love the focus of the project. And so in terms of like bringing it back to the community, so that's first question. And then the second question is for Troy's group. Being in healthcare, I'm a registered nurse as well, and I know the issues with pain management and so forth. I was wondering if on the project, is it more focused on a certain medical condition, for example, sickle cell, it's a lot of stigma with pain and so forth, or is it a medical condition or age group, or I was just wondering. Thank you.
If you don't mind, I'll take it, Yash. Okay. So in terms of what we want to do with the data after, this is a great question, by the way. So yes, we do want to bring it back to the community in the sense of a larger scope. So while the Brown Act is gaining popularity and more folks are learning about it, there are still a large amount of states who don't have the Brown Act as law, and a lot of people who don't know about the Crown Act. So really, first step would be raising awareness around the Crown Act and bringing attention to natural hair discrimination in the U.S. The second part is capturing this as a global phenomenon, because we know that natural hair discrimination against Black men are global concerns. So we want to better understand how this is happening in different parts of the world and how folks are experiencing their natural heritage on a global scale. So yes, we want to raise awareness around CAMAC and global factor. I hope that answers the question.
So many people.
And I think others from our group can also answer this, but I'll just say briefly that we're interested, not right now in any particular condition. We're keeping it open-ended, and that's in part because we're trying to do an online study. So we're trying to make it open to general public and get general feedback on it. But one of the goals is also to potentially update our tools. And so a lot of the tools that are used in pain, even if they seem very generic, like 0 to 10 scale, they were developed with white samples. And, maybe that's one of our issues, is that the current tools are really, really good for white folks and they're not for other groups. And so that's a big part of it, is figuring out, just in general, are there better ways for us to conceptualize and think about pain and to better look at it? But you're right, there are lots of conditions that should be looked at and figured out. And maybe that's, next year's funding is going to go to that. Who knows? I've got a colleague that is working with sickle cell population, those that have gotten treatment for it versus those that haven't, and seeing, what are the trajectories for them with pain and if there are differences there. And I'm happy to, try to make some connection there for you if you're interested in that and learning more about that. But it's true, there's so many. The thing with health is that it affects everyone, and so there's lots of directions that can go with it. And I mean, we're obviously always open, if people are interested in it, to reaching out to us and getting involved with some of the projects that we're already kind of trying to tackle. But yeah, nothing too specific yet, but that would be lovely to do and super important.
Thank you.
Speakers, please put your email in the chat box so that we can all keep in touch. Does anyone else want to take this one, or should we jump to Asha's question? Anyone else have comments? We're good.
I have a quick comment. It isn't project related, but I just came back from Palm Springs and I'm working with the National Tuberculosis Controllers Association, and basically it's dissertation data, and I'm studying compassion fatigue among nurses. And so thinking about reporting back, so I'm working really hard on this data so that I can present it next year, because a lot of people there were people who took the survey and people who continue to take the survey. So I've gotten over 100 responses. And well, I did give them, I got small funding to do $5 gift cards, but so reporting back is really big to me. And so I'm working, in addition to getting my PhD, but reporting back to them and maybe having a poster or a small session and thinking about mitigating compassion fatigue is like a way of me giving back to these nurses who are experiencing compassion fatigue, working with clients who have infectious disease, specifically tuberculosis.
Thank you, Rashun. So we're going to jump to Asha. Asha and Christina, I'm probably going to have you both ask your questions, so we make sure we get them both in before we finish up. I also want to mention that if anyone is interested in the arts, so Rashun has an expertise there, museums and such too. So computational social science stuff, for anybody who's interested in the arts, you want to probably reach out to Rashun on that too. I also have a background and am interested in boards and art service and stuff like that. So Asha and Christina, can you both ask your questions?
Yeah, thank you, first of all, for sharing all the details of your projects. This is so fascinating. So my question is about budgeting, and especially if you have acquired data, without paying anything, or you are using open source software like R. I do not have much experience with budgeting, so I have been wondering what you can apply for. So thank you.
My question, well, hi, first of all, thank y'all for being here. My question is actually about how far you all got by the end of the Institute. I'm just curious about where were you when you left the Institute, and what did you actually have under your belt in terms of ideas and what you wanted to do?
Feel free to take either question. Maybe we'll start with somebody who hasn't spoken in a little bit. Who wants to jump in?
I can jump in. So for budgeting, very good question. Because before this program, like I didn't really have to think about budgeting. Like it's not, as a PhD student, it wasn't something that I necessarily needed to worry about. So we took the approach of just thinking about like what we would like actually need money for. So like, would we need money to like pay participants if we were doing it online? Do we need money to like use a software so that we can share the data and it's not tied to any of our universities? So yeah, that was our approach, just thinking about like, what would we actually need the money for? I don't know if other people wanted to add to that or take the other question as well.
And I will add the answer to where do you apply is you apply to us. So we have a big giant pot of money for the 17 of you and our alums from last year. I think there are 26 from last year. We have a giant pot of money just to give to you. So start dreaming. Do not send me a budget for $10,000, okay, or 6, please. Want to spread it around, but dream big and small. Okay, who wants to take the questions? Who's next?
I can just say that, so the data on the transcripts from the teacher coaching classroom simulations already existed thanks to a prior project. But in my case, I was budgeting for a software that is, I think it's called Luke, which is, I don't remember the exact name of the acronym, but it's basically a sentiment dictionary that's been used in a lot of social science, as well as a big part of the budget is for undergraduate research assistants, which they will be coding the transcripts from a qualitative standpoint to identify themes so that I have both sort of the computational sort of sentiment analysis, but also a qualitative examination of the different themes that and practices that teachers are using in the simulation. So that is also something that I haven't done before, like hiring undergraduate research assistants, but I am excited to embark on that process.
I want to add something on, sorry.
Thank you, Regina, go for it.
I want to add something on budgeting. So like if you're thinking of running an online study with like participant payment, it's important to kind of look at the platform's guidelines for payment and like how much money you should be paying participants for a certain time frame. And you can also kind of like create an account like with MTurk or Prolific to kind of get a sense of how much that would be in terms of paying the participant and any other service or overhead charges that the platform may have.
I just wanted to comment on where we were. Christina's question about sort of where we were at the end. And we had a really great plan for our project. Having the time at SICSS to meet with our groups and really flesh out the details of the project. By the end, we were ready to submit IRB. So we had thought of all the details necessary to submit a full IRB application to an institution. Which I think is a great place to be at the end of such a short time. Great question.
So I want to add in here also for anyone interested in learning about how to hire and engage undergraduate research assistants. Our entire team here is run by undergraduates. So over the course of our time together, there are a bunch of people that come in and out that are recent grads or current Berkeley students. Important part of my pedagogy and how I generate research ideas is engaging with undergrads. So at the height of the pandemic, I had about 50 RAs working for me, mostly women, mostly people of color. I recruit from athletics, I recruit from the LGBTQIA office, I recruit from DSP, I recruit from gender, I recruit from everyone. So if at some point, if anybody would like to talk about that, and I'm hoping Todd will come back and talk about that next year, please reach out. I'm happy to do a little workshop on that. So we're going to close there. So I want to thank Troy, don't go to Stanford, Regina, Rashun, Yondu, Todd, Nicole, and Yash. Thank you for joining us. This is such progress. This did not exist last year. Last year was the first time any site gave funding on its own. And these people can show you what this is going to look like at the end. And as you can see, alongside participation in this site involves giving back too. So hopefully, I hope you're inspiring our students to think about what they might want to present on and be part of next year. Everybody who's not in the room, thank you for watching. I know folks in Cameroon, South Africa, and Nigeria are going to be watching this. Hopefully this is inspiring to you. We encourage you to reach out to people that gave presentations and people on our teams via Slack, because maybe there's an international research project that might happen. All right, well, this is the first year that any site is doing a combined event. That's our Africa plus African Descendants panel, interrogating data collection on Black people and indices. So hopefully some international stuff will come out of this. We have funding. Let's do this. I would also be remiss if I did not thank our sponsors, of course, Howard and Mathematica. Thank you all for watching. For more information on SICSS-Howard Mathematica, visit our website, follow us on social media, and join our email list.